Hey everyone, it is May Lee. Welcome to another episode of The May Lee Show. And actually, this is a special anniversary episode because The May Lee Show actually launched a year ago, February 3rd of 2020. So it's been a year of the show, and this is the 54th episode of the show. Yeah, and what a year it's been. Look, Aggie's here to celebrate with me. For those of you who are watching on video. She always makes an appearance every time I start the show. It's so funny. It's like she knows exactly when I'm about to record an episode. Camera hog. Okay. So yeah, it's been a year and you know, who knew that 2020 was going to be the year that it was, right? I mean, I don't have to tell all of you about what kind of year it was. But when we started the show, back in February of last year, you know, COVID hadn't started yet, really. I mean, you know, it was not even something that was anything that we thought it was going to blow up into. So it was one of those rollouts where we had already recorded a few episodes in January with a few people. And then we started rolling out the show. We debuted the show on February 3rd. But then, of course, COVID started up and snowballed into what it became. And so the show changed direction because of that. And of course, the fallout from COVID and the xenophobia and the racism and of course, Donald Trump and the elections and Black Lives Matter. And I mean, it just was just one thing after another. What the show tried to do and hold the line with, because the mission in the beginning was to highlight and focus Asians, Asian Americans, issues we care about, everything from social issues to entertainment to, you know, all these different kinds of topics. We wanted to keep that going, which we did. But we happened to then start talking about pretty serious issues of racism and different topics surrounding that. And of course, talking about COVID from a health perspective as well. It's been a hell of a ride. If someone had asked me, what do you think it's going to be like for the year? I would have never predicted this. So it has had its shares of ups and downs for sure, and continues to be so. And, you know, I'm going to get into that during this episode, but you know, I look at the episode lists. I mean, it's been everything from, you know, entrepreneurs like Tony Ko to authors like Kevin Kwan to influencers and, you know, producers like Ben Baller and Cassie Ho, Helen Zia, the great Asian American activist, Adele Lim, the screenwriter, you know, Kevin Kwan, the author, Bowen Yang, you know, Maggie Q, Shannon Lee. It just goes on and on. So it's been a combination of well-known people, but also people who have made a difference, activists, or people who are just private citizens who have wanted to do something to make a difference during COVID or fighting against racism. So it's just been this amazing collection of episodes that really show the grand scale and the wide representation of Asian Americans and Asians in what we do, who we are, and our capabilities. And that's been hugely rewarding for me to be able to bring those stories to light and to highlight that and to put a spotlight on people, issues, topics that matter. And not just matter to the Asian community, but are more expansive to also inform the greater public about these people and these topics. So that's been pretty amazing for me to take part in. So I thought episode 1 a year ago was an introductory episode with Benny Luo, the founder of NextShark. And he and I are the ones who decided to start the May Lee Show together. And so episode 1 was the two of us just talking about why we wanted to start the show, what our purpose was, what our hope was. And so that is how we launched this whole show. So I decided for our 1-year anniversary to bring Benny back. And so that we both can reflect on the year and talk about moments and things that, we can sort of think back on, but also issues at hand together. So here we go with Benny. Hey, Benny, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. So, listen, I had this idea, right? And we had talked about it over the phone that our 1-year anniversary is coming up with the show, which is kind of incredible. February 3rd, we launched the first episode of the Mei Lee show together.
Time flies.
Time flies. Do you remember that day when we shot that show? I do. Because we were kind of haphazard about starting the show, right? We just said, you know what? Screw it. We're going to do it and let's just see how it goes, right? And so we didn't even have a studio. We didn't have equipment. I mean, we were kind of like flying by the seat of our pants. So we were graciously loaned a studio by your friend Daniel, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think that I remember again, like, we met each other at an event pre-COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think that you had sent me an email about a podcast, and I'm like, hey, I've wanted to get into podcasting, too. And I think that from idea to conception and launch, I think it happened like in a matter of like less than 2 months or something. And so it moved pretty fast. I remember, we didn't really have any idea what exactly we were doing. I know that we both did a lot of research. I remember, I was talking on the phone, researching on, what equipment is good and, what are other people doing? What are other people using? And then we found ourselves doing our first 2 episodes. I think we did it back to back, if I remember correctly, our friend Daniel's place.
Yeah, at Daniel's, it was you. We decided, okay, let's do episode 1 as an introductory episode to the concept of the show and why we want to do it. Right. And we were both very, very passionate about the idea of creating a show that allowed a format that would allow for a conversation about Asians, Asian Americans, everything from celebrities to influencers to issues that we care about. Right. And so we were like, OK, let's talk about the show and why we want to do it and how we're getting started. So that was the introductory show. That same day, we did record the episode with Kevin Kreider.
So funny that, just looking at what's happening now, what's getting released now and back then. Wow.
I know. And do you remember when Kevin was being very coy about a project that he said he had just finished and he couldn't tell us anything about it? And he's like, but it's going to be big. It's going to be big. And we're like, come on, just tell us something. He's like, no. I'm sworn to secrecy. I can't tell you anything, but I'm just telling you it's going to be really big. So now we know it's Bling Empire.
Exactly. I didn't, it took some time, but I think obviously because of COVID, I would assume that's why it was kind of, it was a little bit later, but no, I distinctly remember it because I remember I think you and I talked about it. I was like, which project is he talking about? He was very secretive about it, but he said he seemed pretty excited about it too. So,
and obviously it's a huge hit. Look, this is a completely different subject, which I think I'm going to try and touch on. And, we've talked about it privately about the various opinions about Bling Empire, right? There are definitely extreme opinions on that show. Kevin and I had a private texting conversation very briefly the other day. And so, let's see if maybe we can talk about some of these conflicting opinions that come out. But anyway, yeah. So that was the first day we were shooting, and it was a grand experiment. And and then all of a sudden, the show kind of started turning into something that we weren't expecting as quickly, right? I mean, we knew that. Here's the thing. I think you and I we were so connected in that way in terms of knowing that there was a need for a show that really amplified our voices, right? Amplified the Asian voices and our successes and our concerns and all of that. And thinking that, okay, let's just interview people who are well known and who are doing interesting things, in their various backgrounds. Like remember Cassie Ho. You were able to get Cassie Ho to be on the show because she's a friend of yours. And then she's obviously a huge success story in the fitness world. But, as we were doing these interviews, we're thinking, okay, great. It seems like it's resonating. People are saying, wow, great to have a show that highlights, these Asian Americans who are doing great things. And so immediately we saw something, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that we had this, we were aligned in, where we kind of wanted the show to go. And, a big part of it was really to, highlight influential Asian Americans that have, been successful in their respective industries or made some sort of an impact. And I think that we also felt that it was perfect timing too. I remember one of the things that you said all the time, and I keep going back to this, is that, throughout your career, 30 plus years as a journalist, looking to the industry and researching, you've noticed blips in the Asian American community, and you've seen those blips come and go, and a lot of those and a lot of the work is being able to kind of notice those blips and being able to kind of take advantage of those trajectories because they don't come around very often, and I feel that we were kind of in, I don't want to say tail end. I mean, I think that we were kind of at that peak where Andrew Yang had just finished a very surprising run as president, right. Running for president. There was a success of Crazy Rich Asians, Fresh Off the Boat, and among other things. And we were also, and I remember you covered, the multiple Academy Awards that Bong Joon-ho won with Parasite too. It was kind of like an upward trajectory, and I was like, wow, this is perfect timing for it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Parasite. That one was one of the shows that we did as well, where I decided, oh my God, this is so huge. We got to talk about it. And so that was in February, right? Again, at the beginning of the launch of the show. So we've definitely felt like, okay, this is kind of working. Let's just kind of keep experimenting, having, low expectations, because you never want to have, you don't want to set your expectations too high to get disappointed. But I think we were both hoping that we were onto something, and it seemed like we were, but we were thinking, yeah, let's take it slow and just see what happens, and then bam, COVID starts hitting, right? And that changed the trajectory. It forced us to pivot, and it certainly shed a brand new light on the issues that we were talking about. And it definitely made us focus more on a very serious issue such as xenophobia, because that's what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think on some aspects it could be seen as though we were kind of like not forced, but we kind of had to pivot. But I think we both look at it as, well, no, we were just called for, a higher, there was just a higher calling for this. I mean, obviously the content that we were already producing there, it was very, very meaningful. But I think that, obviously COVID hitting, it was a negative impact, and, there was a lot of challenges that arose for our community. But I think that overall, it kind of showed that there was almost like a service for us that we were almost called upon to, when the whole pandemic happened for our community. So I thought that, that was interesting for me, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, from a news perspective as a journalist, of course, I felt like we had to cover it. But on a social level, and then, of course, on an AAPI level, we had to, right? We had to focus on the issue. We had to talk about it openly, and we had to really try to do something to make a difference, to try to make an impact. And I think that's when I realized, wow, the show really does have a purpose. Again, like you're saying, of course, we knew that, the show had some purpose of serving the AAPI community and highlighting our, kind of what we do and what we're about. But then I felt like because of COVID and the xenophobia and the racist attacks that were constantly happening, that this became a platform to openly talk about all of these incidents. And, I think everybody knows by now, I kind of just speak my mind, and I kind of tell it like it is. And I'll obviously inject my own opinions and editorial opinions about things.
That's why I love you.
I know. And okay, everyone, I'm going to share this with you guys. Benny, early on, I did a short video that they put on NextShark as well as the Mei Lee Show Instagram. And I think I was expressing my real anger and disappointment over idiots during COVID not wearing masks and partying it up down at spring break in Florida. And I was just like, fuck you people, you know, and I was just going off, right? And I think that was the first video where I was really kind of dropping the F-bomb and just, you know, kind of
fell in love with
being myself, really. And I think it got like 15,000. I don't remember. It just kept on getting views, right? And I was like, Benny, what is going on? He's like, May, I'm telling you, people love angry May.
You're real. I think you encompass a lot of the feelings that, you know, that people have, and, you know, and they just kind of hold back. And I think that, you know, it's, and, you know, while it is you expressing yourself, I think that you're definitely preaching the choir.
Yeah, maybe so. I think and a lot of people have written to me saying, you know, privately, oh God, you just said exactly how I feel. And I think one viewer just the other day, I think I did a video where I was talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the crazy QAnon congresswoman. And I was just like, what the fuck? This is mind blowing. Right. And she's like, can I make a GIF with you doing that? That would be so awesome. So yes, I think it is one of those situations where I've always said from the very beginning, and this is why I think guests also like coming on the show. And once they start talking to me, they were like, they're like, wow, this is really authentic. That's what it is. I want that authenticity, right? You got to be genuine and authentic. And that's what I'm trying to be, because what else can you be? There's no, I don't know. For me, I don't want to put up any walls or any airs, any facade, which, you know, people do. I mean, that's life, right? But I choose not to now. Been through too much, seen too much, experienced too much to even think about doing that anymore. And I hope that people are appreciating the fact that this show is about being real and honest.
Yeah, I think so. I really do think so. I mean, I think that, you know, I think people value, you know, authenticity right nowadays. And, you know, they don't want to feel like they're just kind of talking to a robot, and, you know, they want to know that they're talking to, you know, a normal person. It's interesting because I think I was reading an article before where celebrities and mainstream celebrities, like A-listers now, I mean, they're getting a lot of, you know, kind of flack, you know, pre-COVID because of, you know, whatever privilege, whatever they had, you know, getting COVID tests ahead of time, or like, you know, Ellen DeGeneres kind of like complaining that she's in a mansion, but, you know, and feeling like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm in a prison, but no, she's really in a mansion sort of thing. And I think that it really kind of, I think, you know, I read an article that said that more and more people are starting to follow influencers that are more kind of like true and authentic. They're not like, you know, a big deal, like a big celebrity, but they kind of, you know, are passing on information in a very kind of authentic way that is unfiltered and relatable. People that can relate, that can relate to the everyday person. And I think that that's a huge value that you kind of provide for viewers for the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I think what I always enjoy doing when I do these interviews, even with really famous, well-known people, is to get beyond that. You know, you know, they've given a jillion interviews about their career and their movies or books or whatever, and they get asked the same questions over and over again. But when they come on the show, I want to ask questions that they don't normally get asked. I want to get deeper into who they are and what their background is, and have them tell me things that they, you know, normally wouldn't tell others in an interview. And then especially with an Asian background, there's a deeper understanding of that person's experience because I can relate, right? So that's happened so many times. It really does make me feel great about the way in which, you know, we conduct these interviews, and, you know, and the things we talk about, because they are deeper. It's more substance. You know, like, remember when Bowen Yang came on from SNL? He was so open and honest about his sexuality and, you know, the difficulty he went through with his Asian family, his Chinese parents, in, you know, when they discovered that he was gay, and the fact
one
that
of my favorite episodes to this day, by the way.
No, that I honestly, and Bowen was such a sweetheart. He was more than willing to come on the show. And he was a fan of the show, which like I was just so flattered by. And then he was willing to be so open and honest in answering any question, but particularly that because I approached it from an Asian understanding. You know, we know what it's like to grow up with traditional Asian parents who think a certain way, want their kids to be a certain way, and you don't want to disappoint them because of the idea of filial piety. That non-Asians don't understand that concept, right? And when I said that, and when he was telling me about the fact that even though his parents put him through conversion therapy, he was not angry, you know, because he said, I understood that they came from a different place. They didn't understand what this was, and that's all they knew. And so he didn't hold anything against them for that. And you know, other people of non-Asian descent, maybe Asians too, but you know, a lot of Asians would understand what he was talking about, right? And I did too. And I'm like, Bowen, I totally get it. I totally get it. It's not right, you know, that you had to go through that, but your feeling of not, you know, feeling badly and any animosity towards your families because you understood where they were coming from is so Asian, right? It's that idea of filial piety. So that's something that you can't get somewhere else. You would never get that kind of interview from Entertainment Tonight or Extra, you know.
Yeah.
When
it's because, honestly, you know, I feel that, you know, it's because that, you know, you're able to touch on topics like that and discuss that. I think that's what makes me such a huge fan and so proud of, you know, what you've been able to do, frankly. You know, and I think that's indicative to where I think both of us have had surprises. I mean, you know, building a podcast is tough. I mean, it's a very long road. It's a marathon. It's not something where, you know, you have one viral thing and suddenly, like, you know, things are amazing. It's really like a long climb. And I think one of the things, aside from being proud of the shows that we've been able to put together, is also the types of people that we discover that are big fans of the show. I mean, I still remember you and I got this, I think it was like on a morning, and I think I woke up to a text from you going, hey, oh my God, Jeremy Lin shouted out the show. Can you believe that? And I'm like, what? And I remember going through, I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy. Both you and I had no idea that he actually listens to the show.
No.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, and that's, again, I mean, I think because we're touching on these subjects that aren't often talked about openly, and not just openly, but like in a pretty bold way, you know, calling things out. I have no problem calling people out if they're wrong or if there's, you know, something that is unjust. You know, I'm all about justice, right? And when it came to xenophobia and racism, that's what really got my blood boiling. And like Alina Hernandez story in Torrance, right? The woman who was a racist. You followed
very closely. You were first on that.
Yeah, I followed that story very closely from the very beginning, and I started digging and doing my investigative reporting and getting the victims on, you know, the show first and the attorney and all of that. And so calling up the sheriff's department, the police department, trying to, you know, and really a call to action. And it was amazing. That was amazing to see the power of the AAPI community when we all come together and we believe in something together and we're willing to do something about it rather than just sitting back and saying, not my problem, or somebody else is going to take care of it. So that was a really great moment, I think, for our community, definitely for the show and what we were trying to do with the show and use it as a powerful platform.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is a question I've been wanting to ask you because, you know, looking back on the show, right, you know, we've touched on so many different topics. I mean, we touched on entertainment. We've interviewed, you know, celebrities. You know, during the COVID pandemic, you interviewed frontline workers.
Yep.
You've also interviewed, you know, people behind, you know, the vaccine production. You've also covered racism with targeting our community. You know, you've called out our community a couple times on, you know, certain inactions, right? You know, as someone that's kind of, you know, been around the block for quite some time now, and you know, you've worked in the industry for quite some time now, and covering so many different topics with the show. I mean, what's kind of your assessment? You know, if you may, like your general assessment of, you know, what's going on in the Asian American community. Have there been any sort of like, you know, growth are we going like looking at it from a bird's eye view, are we still going up like an upward trajectory?
Yeah, well, first of all, are you trying to tell me I'm old? I'm just kidding.
No, of course not.
I am. No, I have been around a long time. So no, but yeah, no, it's a great question, Benny, because I think about that a lot. And it's funny because I was just paddleboarding over the weekend because that's the way I like to relax and, think about stuff. And I was asked, okay, where do I even begin? Okay, let's begin with this. As you know, Benny, because Benny and I talk every week about stuff, I've been a little frustrated and a little bit feeling like I'm losing my mojo because, as you just mentioned, building a podcast and doing a podcast is not easy, right? It's not easy to build, the foundation. It's not easy to build the audience. It's not easy to continue because, I'm going to say it again. If people think we have a whole army of people in production helping with this show, we do not. You're looking at it. And Benny has NextShark, so it's not like he can focus on the Mei Lee show 24/7. Okay, so the reality is the Mei Lee show is the Mei Lee show. Me, producer, host, booker, writer. I mean, so don't think that, it's all this major production that helps build the show. It is a bootstrap operation, and really bootstrap operation, right? No, so having said that, I've been feeling a little frustrated because I just don't know after a year's time, can we continue building? Is the audience there? Do they care? Are they wanting more? Does the Asian community care about each other enough to work together to help causes like this that do seem to resonate? Because we certainly get the feedback, but is it there? Is the support there? So going back to your question, over the years, of course, it's improved, in terms of representation and the Asian community being more recognized as we grow in numbers, as we become more influential in different industries. That's obvious, right? You look at entertainment and media alone, and of course you're seeing more representation. We're seeing more movies and television and all of that, right? What I worry about, though, is that there still is this lack of wanting to show support more beyond just talking the talk, right? Sometimes I see a failure to walk the walk. I see people whining about representation. I see people whining about why isn't this happening? Why aren't we getting more recognition? Why isn't something happening? And I want to literally look at them in the face and say, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it besides sitting behind your smartphone or your computer and bitching about it and then blaming others for not doing something about it? What are you doing? And for those of us who are trying to do something, you with NextShark, me with the Mei Lee show, and others, it's like climbing Mount Everest without oxygen. When we're trying to do it by ourselves with no support, but then people are trying to pull us down at the same time. Okay. And when I say pull us down, I'm saying within our own community. Okay. I see that happening within the AAPI community. So if we're going to try to pull each other down within our community, why would anyone else on the outside try to help us?
Yeah.
Why? So that's where I get a little riled up because I'm like, man, we're doing our best, trying to put out this content that is meaningful and that helps hopefully build up our voices, hopefully build up the representation, breaking stereotypes, all of that stuff, right? Informing, obviously educating. But when we're met with resistance or criticism or Why aren't you doing this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you report on this? And it's just like, really?
Yeah.
Why don't you then? Why don't you try to do this? And tell me how it works out for you. See, this is Angry May coming out again.
Oh man, no, it's story of our lives though. I mean, I think that, not to knock on any supporters we have, we definitely, NextShark and the Mei Lee Show, we definitely have some really good hardcore supporters that always have our backs and
Great
they're
supporters
for us whenever
Yes.
we need. But I think it is frustrating. I mean, I do share that frustration too. I mean, even for us, I mean, we're a bootstrap startup, and we just so happen to be around like just longer than the Mei Lee Show, and just that's it. I mean, and we've just been doing longer, and I think that generally our staff and my staff have we've done a good job with reporting everything that we could that we think is relevant to the Asian American community and also Asians around the world. But it does suck that when we have writers and editors pulling 12-hour days, sometimes like, 5 days a week voluntarily straight, to try to cover stories in the best way possible. But then they're still met with, oh, why didn't you do this or that? And, it's kind of tough. But at the same time, I think, how we kind of get through it, and I think how you get through it too, is really focusing on the supporters that we have. And I look at it as, I think we definitely still have a long way to go. I'm happy to hear that you say, generally speaking, you still have a general optimism to what's going on. But I think we still have a long way to go. And I hope that, as we continue doing this, the trajectory can really just only go up, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, it has to take effort. We can't just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk. I think last year, because of the xenophobia and the racism, it woke a lot of people up to the reality of what this world is still like. When I started in this business 30 plus years ago, the reality was racism, open racism, right? Especially people in media and entertainment, because there weren't a lot of us and we had to fight for it. And so, oh, sorry, I didn't even finish the story of the paddleboarding. So my friend asked me, if you're so frustrated, then is there someone you can talk to? Is there somebody who has done it, and who you can ask for advice and like a mentor? And I said, you know what? Sadly, in my business, there aren't any, because I was kind of one of the first, beyond like Connie Chung, right? She was the only one that was well known before my time, but I was kind of the first generation of Asians in news, in television news. And so I was literally racking my brain. I said, not really. And that's
even for your whole career, you're saying that you can't really think of someone that you can kind of be like, oh yeah, I look up to this person, and and help you through.
Yeah, right? not in my business, who's Asian, who understands the Asian experience of being in this industry ahead of me, right? And can kind of mentor me, or at least give me some guidance into how to navigate. So that's been a little, I realized, wow, that's a little tough actually. And I've been able to get through, again, please, I'm not asking for sympathy here, so don't pull out your violins. But it was just a fact. And I didn't even realize, like, God, I didn't even think about it that way. So it's kind of can be a lonely experience when you're in a position where you feel like there's no mentor, ahead of me. So having said that, that's why maybe I am even more compelled to do what I do and be as vocal as I am, because I want people to know that I was willing to make the sacrifices to blaze the trail for others. So basically, don't fuck it up. I worked really hard, and blood, sweat, and tears. No kidding, blood, sweat, and tears. And I don't want, when I hear the complaints and the whining and the bitching and the moaning, and people are just not willing to do anything about it, I'm like, fuck you.
I don't know if you'd be surprised to hear this, but would you be surprised if I told you that I think before I met you and did this project, it would be very difficult for me to think about someone of Asian descent that I would really consider a mentor in my business, even to this day.
See, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, when I mean, so what does that say? Does it mean that the Asian community has been sort of selfish in terms of not wanting to, kind of broadcast the fact that they're, mentors or want to help, or is it because there's been a lack? I think it might be both. I think, to be fair, there's been a lack of people in this industry, who have reached a certain level. Now that's happening. Now there are more of us, for sure, without a doubt. So that's a good thing. And again, going back to your original question, we have definitely made progress. There are many more Asians in every industry, right, that have made great strides. And that really makes my heart warm. I mean, that sounds stupid, but it does. It does. It warms my heart.
You know what's interesting too is that I think you're right. I think that there is some sort of like, you said that opportunities are scarce, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's just not enough, I think, those sort of positions right now. And I think that we're all kind of fighting for it. And, and I don't mean to, call out older generation or that, woe is me, I have no mentors, no one helped me. The truth, I did get help. But obviously in terms of like, Asian Americans that have kind of paved the way, who I respect, I have tried to seek mentorship from older Asian Americans in like this industry in the past. And a lot of the times I don't really get that sort of warmness. And it feels like it's more of like a competition a little bit. And let me tie this into something too. I mean, you and I actually, we were in a Clubhouse, talk with Daniel Day Kim yesterday. And, Daniel Day Kim just went on a Clubhouse. He did a little intro and everything. And he did something, and he said something that was kind of, that it was very general, like it was cool. But I think, I came on, I raised my hand to talk because I wanted to invite Daniel on. And then Daniel also recognized, Jackfruit, which was on as well. And Jackfruit is another Asian American community that has like been very vocal about, sharing content where, there were crimes against Asian Americans. And I think Daniel said something along the lines of, hey, Jackfruit's here too. And, is it okay if I invite him up? Or are you guys friendly? Are you guys competitive? And I thought that it was really funny because, for me, I'm like, no, actually, I mean, my philosophy has always kind of been, the more of us, the better. And I think I've said this many, many times. I mean, I love what I do in NextShark. And yeah, like, do I want it to succeed? Do I want it to be, something big? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that I want to tear people down around me just because they're somewhat in the same industry. I mean, frankly, even if like NextShark never becomes big, as long as like, if I can inspire someone to do it bigger and better than me, down the line, like that's really all I can hope for. I mean, at the end of the day, like my sole goal, in the context of what we do here is, can we advance our community in some way, or can I participate in helping out in some small way? Change is tough. Change requires a lot of sacrifice. Change requires, a lot of people coming together on an idea and to really let go of our own egos and our own sort of selfish goals that we personally have. And
yeah, easier said than done, Benny. I mean, I think it's human nature to be driven by ego, right, and selfishness. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I think that is part of human nature. And then again, when it comes to the limited opportunities, again, I say like, obviously things are getting better because they are slowly, but it's still limited for the Asian community. And so therefore I think we still do suffer from that scarcity mentality that, has been with us since we immigrated to this country. The notion that there are just a few openings and opportunities for Asians, and then the rest goes to the white majority or somebody else. And so therefore we have to fight and claw and crawl, to this opportunity and hang on to it. And if we see anything else that might threaten it, even if it's a fellow Asian, especially if it's a fellow Asian, because we're thinking, oh God, no, there's only one position that is available for this Asian, so we have to hang on to it. I think that is still a feeling that, is pervasive. It is pervasive, and I'm certainly not suggesting that, it's something that we can just like ignore. Because that's something that's also a manifestation of this greater society that we live in America at least, you know, and as well as other areas of the world besides Asia, where it's still a white majority. And so therefore executives, C-suites, all of that, they're still controlled mostly. I just knocked my camera, sorry. They're still controlled by mostly, you know, white men. Let's just be honest. So that's going to still be the feeling of, you know, kind of anxiety and desperation. I don't know what the cure is to that, except to keep on, you know, fighting and in it, you know, but also I think the combination has to be, don't kill each other, you know, to get to that point. Right. Yeah. That's what I sometimes see. And that's what frustrates me sometimes as to, wow, instead of supporting each other, we're trying to like kill each other off.
Yeah. I will say one thing though, that I think is that I see as kind of like positive. I mean, during the whole pandemic, you know, I did see a lot of, you know, Asian Americans coming together, trying to figure out ways to help and, you know, really trying to take action. And starting campaigns like hate is a virus or I am not a virus. You know, there was a lot of hashtag campaigns. I mean, I you know, to their credit, I think that there's a lot of people that tried to take action. However, I hope that, you know, the next step and the next evolution to all this is that, you know, we can really all find a way to come together on, you know, I don't know if it's a single ideology or something that really kind of can really unite us all so that we can truly move forward as Asian Americans. And I know that that's, like you said, easier said than done. I mean, you know, there's so many, the Asian American community is very, very diverse and it's filled with so many different backgrounds and we haven't been here that long. You know, a lot of us. I mean, yeah, you know, Chinese people has been around since, you know, very, 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 very early on. They built the railroads and everything. But there's still so many new Asian Americans that are still getting on, and we're still, you know, figuring out where our place, right?
Yeah.
It's in this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Asian Americans are all very different in their own ways. So that makes it even more complex, right? To try to put it all under the same umbrella of experience when it's can be very different. And yet as a big group, one sort of solid demographic, we can be so powerful. And we, again, Asians are the fastest growing demographic ethnic group in the US. And people forget that. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. But all right, so let's make this a little bit lighter before we, you know, end this episode. So tell me tell me fondest memory of doing the show so far, or at least like, or favorite episode, whatever. I mean, what comes to mind for you?
Oh man. You know, I just loved what we've been able to do, just the type of quality, the quality of the episodes, you know, being like a brand new episode, the guesses that you and I have been able to get. I mean, you know, Maggie Q, you know, Bowen Yang, and, you know, Daniel Wu. And the crazy thing is, like, a lot of these guests, right, you know, a lot of them were already fans of the show, which was so surprising to us. I remember we would just talk and be like, hey, maybe let's get this guy on. And then we suddenly find out, no, I know Mei Lee. I listened to the Mei Lee.
I know. I was just like, what? You know? Yes. I know.
You listen to the show? Oh my God.
Like Daniel Wu. I love Daniel Wu. I mean, who doesn't, right? And I remember when he started like liking things and, you know, commenting, and I was like, oh my God, is Daniel Wu like following the show? And he was. And then we asked him to come on the show and he happily did so. And he like, you know, I mean, I think that episode was like an hour and 20 minutes or something. And then on election night, I did that Instagram live with Kelly Hu. And then she happily came on. I love Kelly. She and I have become friends. She's like, I love her. And then Daniel agreed to come on the second half. And so I just, you know, it was just like, God, this is so nice to be able to experience people who, you know, have this on-screen persona, but then to be able to get them on a level that is just everyday and, you know, and then share everyday thoughts besides just like, what's your movie? What's this? You know, and just bring them to a place where the everyday person can be like, oh my God, they're so cool. And yeah, we can talk about politics, we can talk about social issues, we can talk about whatever. And so that is the beauty of the organic conversation that I like to do on the show. I think I shared with you not too long ago, Shannon Lee was on the show, Bruce Lee's daughter. And that was a great episode because she and I really, were talking about some pretty intimate things about her past, her father and her brother. And people have been commenting on that episode. It must have been released on something else because there's a lot of YouTube comments coming out on that episode.
YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, I know. But these are diehard Bruce Lee fans. Okay. They're saying things like, this is the best interview I've ever seen. I learned something new about Shannon and her father. Oh my God, I had no idea. And that's where I was just like, yeah, come to the Mei Lee show and you're going to learn something new.
That's what I'm proud of, to be honest, because, going back, there's been a lot of high level, A-lister Asian Americans that, you've had on the show, we've had on the show. And I think that a general theme that I kind of keep hearing is, remember what Kevin Kwan said? I mean, after the interview, the writer, creator of Crazy Rich Asians, he was like, yeah, some of the questions you ask, like I've never really been asked before on a mainstream, on a mainstream platform. And, questions about, Asian identity and experiences and, that sort of nuance of, Asian culture that you kind of understood, that you're able to kind of bring out. I think that, it's moments like that. And we've had a lot of those moments that just make me really proud, regardless of, how we're doing in the show, what the numbers look like or whatever. Like that's something that I'll forever be very, very grateful for that we've been able to accomplish.
Okay, everyone, I'm gonna tell you this because part of my frustration comes from the lack of huge growth, right? And we live in a society right now that it's all about how many likes you get and how many followers you have, how many subscribers you have. And it's important to a certain extent when you're trying to build a successful show, right? Because that's what people look at, especially, if you want sponsors or advertisers or whatever, which we don't have, not yet. But so I do get a little bit bummed about that, thinking, well, if it's not growing, then I just don't know what's the point. And Benny has to always tell me, this is where he's a very wise soul. He has to tell me, listen, Nuna, sometimes it's not about the numbers. We have such great quality and we have really good engagement. And so, that is what I like to focus on. And so I'm like, you know what, Benny, you are almost as young enough to be my son, but you're so wise.
That's the only place. It's okay. That's the only time I will school Nuna. That's it. 95% of the time, you're the one schooling me with everything.
Yeah, no, not true. It's very balanced. It's a very balanced business and friendly relationship. But yeah. So thank you for always reminding me of that, Benny, because I think we have built something. Even if we walked away tomorrow, we would be very proud, huh?
And we're not walking away. Don't give me that, not yet.
Yeah, believe me, there are some moments where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can keep doing this. But I would be very, very proud of what we've done in the year. I mean, actually, I am. It's incredible in a year, the roster of guests, the quality of shows, the impact that we've made, and the attention that we've gotten for our efforts. For something that started off as just this weird experiment, and hoping that it might work, to 50, what is this? This is going to be our 54th episode in a year. Man, we've come a long way and done a lot, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So
50 episodes. God.
I know, dude, 54. Remember, in the beginning before COVID, we were actually going out on location. We were trying to go to our guests if they couldn't come to our conference room at NextShark's office, right?
I do miss it though.
Yeah, I know. I do miss the face-to-face interaction with people that we had. But COVID actually has helped us, I think, get more people on the show because it's been easier. Access is a little bit easier. So, so that's kind of helped. But yeah, I mean, now it's like, well, let's see where we can take it. But I'm going to ask everyone, I need your good vibes and energy because there are more moments than I want to have where I do feel like I'm not sure if I can keep doing this on my own. And I don't want to bring it down right now, but I'm just being real, everyone. It's hard. It's hard to keep this momentum going. It's hard to, because I'm a perfectionist, right? And so I want the shows to always be really good. I don't want to just throw a show together because listen, during COVID, everyone and their dog started a podcast, right? People who, sorry to say, have no business trying to do a podcast. They've have no experience. They've never been in media. They've never interviewed anyone. They don't know the nuances of a good interview. So, when I see that and people thinking they can just throw together a podcast without any thought of what kind of impact it's going to have, what kind of service it provides, it gets frustrating.
Yeah, I think one thing people also need to realize is there's a lot of quality with the Mei Li show, right? And even with like NextShark Mei Li show, like we've had a lot of great feedback on the quality of our stuff, right? And this perception that wow, like it's so the production is so well made. I mean, so clean, and it's very easy to kind of assume, like you said in the past, that we have like a big team behind us, and the reality is not really. I mean, I was a one-man show for a long time. You're still a one-woman show in many aspects. I mean, for listeners listening, do you know that May herself goes through every single episode to figure out and works with the editor on exactly what to cut, and she's also booking a lot of guesses all the time. She's also thinking of ideas, and she lives and breathes the show, and she does it oftentimes without any other help. And so, if any listeners want to take something away, I hope that they realize all the work that you put into this whole thing. It's not easy. And, you're not trying to, and, you and I, we don't really, money is nice, and it'll be great if we could, someday make, this could be like extremely, extremely lucrative venture for us. But for the most part, I mean, we do it because we're really, really passionate in this. And for me, we do our best, and we're used with working with limited resources.
Yeah.
And we're happy to keep going, but I'm sure May would appreciate some help, right?
Yeah, no, I think as would NextShark, because you guys make it work too. But it's something that if you had a few more resources, then it would probably be better. So I think that's with any entrepreneurial kind of enterprise. There's going to be struggle, but you also, in the world we live in, your affirmation has to come in some form that supports you. Yes, verbal affirmation and all of that, it's great, but to keep an enterprise going, you do need financial resources. You need other types of, support. And so for us, and especially with this show, because of the way we do it, it's bare bones. I don't even have an intern, so, but yeah, so, it's the passion that keeps us going. But sometimes I think, wow, I'm not sure if I have enough left in me to keep it going at this pace without at least elevating it in some way. So, let's see what 2021 brings us. Right? I mean, it's now February. It's 1 year. That's why I wanted to do this episode. Just really you and I just talk about what we've been through, what it's been like, and to tell everyone that we still care. We still care deeply about the mission.
One thing I want to get into, is that I think you and I have had this moment too, where, I've had people come to me going, hey, like, why are you wasting your time in this? Like, you're so talented, like you should get into this industry. It's much better or whatever, you'll make more money. And I think that I think that there's something that draws us into continuing what we do. And, and for you, you've been doing this for a year already into this, right? And and for us, with NextShark, I mean, we've reached a lot of challenges because of the COVID pandemic. I mean, independent media is not doing that well, and especially BIPOC owned media, independent media is even harder nowadays. But we're still here. I mean, there's something that's continuing to kind of drive us forward, and we're going to keep doing it for as long as that feeling is there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good for you, Benny. I'm so proud of you. Seriously. I say that to you, but I don't think I say that to you enough. I really am. I'm really proud of your dedication. And everybody should know this. Benny is seriously one of the nicest people you can meet. Super genuine. Keeps it real and very humble. He is so humble. And it's you don't get that very often with people who in this industry start having their own business. Everybody knows who NextShark is, so he could be an asshole. He could act like some big shot asshole, but he's not. He's like the furthest thing from it. And Benny, I know you'll never change, which is why it's so awesome. So,
thank you, Nina. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Well, listen, I think we can wrap it up. I mean, you and I can talk forever, but yeah, it's been such a good year of such unbelievable, unexpected surprises. And I want to thank all the followers and viewers. And like you said earlier, Benny, we have some really loyal, awesome viewers and listeners of the show.
It's because of you. That's why we keep going.
Well, I'm part of it, but it's also because of the community that obviously this is resonating for a lot of people, and hopefully we can continue growing that, right? So, hey guys, if you have ideas and things like that for us, you got to throw them our way. So subscribe to YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and let us know. We always want to know.
Patreon. We also have Patreon.
We also have Patreon, and that's really slow going, I gotta admit, so I'm not sure if that's like working. But anyway, again, we're trying. We're trying all these different things. But yeah, your support is welcome in any way. But yeah, let us know. Let us know what you think. All right, Benny, I love you. Give my love to your wife, Nina, and I'll see you soon.
Yep, see you soon, Nina. Thank you for having me on, and let's keep going. That's what I always say after our calls.
I know. We'll keep going. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, take care.